Welcome back to Upfront. Our next guest has a unique perspective on the pandemic and the economy. Aaron Olver was State Commerce Secretary under former Governor Jim Doyle. 11 years ago, he survived a near-fatal bout with the H1N1 flu, and he's joining us now on Upfront to talk about his experience and really how it's shaped his thinking now on the coronavirus outbreak. We appreciate you talking to us today. You had H1N1 in 2009, and there are some scary similarities to what people are going through with coronavirus, including being on a ventilator. So tell us about your experience.
Yeah, well, thank you, Adrian, for having me on. This is a little bit of a flashback for me. I had gone to a conference in California, and so I'm passing through airports, I'm making connecting flights, I'm in hotels, I was at a conference, I gave a speech, I shook a bunch of hands, I accepted an award on behalf of the governor, and somewhere in that chain, I got H1N1. And so I was sort of knocked out for about a week, and I was at home, and my breathing was getting worse and worse. And I eventually went to the emergency room thinking they'd, give me an antibiotic for a secondary infection and send me home. But to my surprise, they admitted me, and I wound up staying for a month in a coma on a mechanical ventilator, sort of living through this experience of surviving a viral pandemic in an ICU. So this is a little bit of a flashback.
What do you want people to know, though, considering your experience?
I guess, I really want people to think about two things. One is, the ICU visit is kind of a lottery in a bad way. You don't have any idea if it's going to affect you or your spouse, your child, your parent. It's not clear who needs this kind of intensive care, but these resources are intense. I had not just a mechanical ventilator, I had my own nurse, I had a negative pressure room, I had a special spaceship bed, we called it, that rotated my body so it could clear the fluid from my lungs. I was heavily sedated in order to deal with the tube that was in my throat, and there's starting to be shortages of some of those sedatives and the ICU drugs. My kidneys failed, so I wound up being on a dialysis machine. And, there's a limited number of dialysis machines. So this is a very resource intensive process to keep somebody alive in an ICU. And so I think it's really important we try to work together with as much compassion and kindness as we can to really stretch our medical resources so that we can protect some of those really intense resources for the people that need it the most. So that's one point I was making. The other point that I was trying to make is that healthcare and economics are intertwined right now in a way that they really never have been before. And so part of the key to reopening the economy and getting business going again is also tackling the healthcare. It's not one or the other. It's not one versus the other. We need to be tackling healthcare in order to advance the economy.
And what do you say to people who want to start opening up businesses and restaurants, just considering your experience surviving something like this?
Well, I have compassion for everyone, right? I mean, I don't want to see anyone go through an ICU stay that doesn't need to. At the same time, I've spent my whole life working to try to create jobs and grow the economy. And I think that right now, we're having a little bit of an artificial debate, I think, because it's not about what the government says is the right time to open the economy. It's really about when people have confidence to go back to restaurants, to go back to concerts, to go back to sporting events or, the gym. Like, we need to tackle the healthcare crisis so that we can give people the confidence to get back out there and start to behave normally again.
I know you're also concerned about some of the things that happen for coronavirus patients once they get out of the hospital. What do you think lawmakers and decision makers should be thinking about?
So, I can only kind of speak based on my own experience. I'm not an expert in healthcare or recovery, but one of the things that I think we can start talking about soon is how we help coronavirus survivors recover, because getting getting the mechanical ventilators, enough hospital rooms, things like that is the first step, enough dialysis machines. But there's a lot of aspects of staying in an ICU that people don't always talk about. There's something called ICU psychosis, where when you wake up from being heavily sedated and on a lot of drugs that your body's not used to, you hallucinate, you don't understand what's real. I woke up, I had lost 30 pounds in a month, and could barely walk. It took 2 nurses holding each of my arms and a tank of oxygen to walk across the room. And I remember the first time they helped me go up 1 flight of stairs, I felt like Rocky. I mean, that was a huge accomplishment to make it up a flight of stairs. And they told me at one point I might have to go to a nursing home to learn how to walk again. So there's a lot of therapy that some of these folks are going to need. Some people probably will have to go to nursing homes and learn how to walk. Some people are probably going to stay on dialysis for a while when they leave if they had kidney failure like I did. Some people are going to need mental health services. A lot of people that go through a stay like I did wind up having PTSD symptoms, and they told me that might happen. I didn't think it would happen to me. It did happen to me, and so I think there's a lot of aftercare that people might need as well.
Aaron, I'm sure this isn't easy to talk about, so we really appreciate your perspective. Thanks for sharing your story.
I hope it helps some people.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin on what she'd say if asked to be vice president.